The caporale pushes you. He says, "Oh, you've left some tomatoes there." He shouts at you, "Pick them up, pick them up." If anything's left, he's not happy. He shoves you and slaps you in the face. He hurts you. He has no respect for you, and that is slavery. Slavery, not just exploitation. Exploitation is something like poor pay, but when they push you, when you have to work in the burning sun and have no say, no papers, and you sleep in the ghettos, all that is slavery. Modern slavery. Slavery doesn't require chains. No, slavery is what's happening here. This is slavery.
Ivan Sagnier calls them slaves, the hundreds of thousands of seasonal farm workers from Africa and Eastern Europe on fields in Italy. Ivan, who comes from Cameroon, was once one of them. Today, he fights for their rights and against a mafia-style system of dumping prices, abuse of power and exploitation. Ivan wants to bring the people who profit from that system behind bars and end the farm workers' inhumane living conditions.
This is typical housing for the immigrants. They use the fireplace for all kinds of things because there's no electricity, no light, no running water, nothing. But they know how to help themselves. They use this for heating and cooking. Here's the table. Here's oil and the plates they eat off of. Look, here are 8 mattresses. Maybe 40 people can sleep here. 40 people. You've seen it. This is a typical house for 40 people. Sometimes plaster from the ceiling falls on them when they sleep. It's much too cold here. There are no windows. They close up the openings with sheet metal.
The migrant workers have to buy all basic amenities from the criminal gangmasters called the caporali. Often they come from the same countries as the foreign workers. For a rotten mattress, they'll demand 10 euros.
In that yellow house over there are Italians. Not foreigners, Italians. They do business with the caporali. It's the only house around here with running water and electricity. The people have to go over there to charge their mobile phones. Because there's no electricity here, they'll take 50 cents for charging a phone, and to wash yourself over there it costs €1 or €1.50. It makes me want to cry. I feel disgust and hatred when I see human beings living under these conditions today in the 21st century in Italy. It's despicable, despicable. And the whole world knows about it. Everyone knows about it. But they don't care because these are migrants. The migrants are treated like animals. They are supposed to work to boost the business of the farmers and politicians. But no one sees them as people. That's Italy. Welcome to Italy. The migrants who live in the camps are completely controlled by the people known as caporali. They're a kind of mafia. When the farmers need workers for the fields, they call the caporale on the phone. And the caporale abuse this position of power to exploit and control the immigrants. And they live side by side with them in there.
The Apulia and Basilicata regions of southern Italy are known as the country's vegetable gardens. Apulia alone produces a third of Italy's tomato harvest. In the remote areas around the fields, we find the so-called ghettos. Entire shanty towns have grown up here.
We'll need a hidden camera in the fields. Put down your big camera. The caporali don't want cameras because that would mean people could see their illegal business. The immigrants don't like them because they don't want to be seen in the ghettos. They're ashamed of being filmed and that someone in their home countries in Africa might see them. When they talk with their parents or friends in Africa, they tell them a very different story, that their lawyers or work in an office. They lie because they're ashamed to admit that they live under these conditions.
More than 3,000 people live here during the harvest. Most are Africans, people who have been arriving on Italy's shores for the past decades, and who Italy feels it's been left to deal with without help from Europe. Many of the farmhands are undocumented. The government turns a blind eye. Without these low-wage workers, produce would end up rotting in the fields.
There's garbage everywhere. There are mosquitoes and flies, and it stinks.
These camps have no sanitation. They are lawless places that might pose a personal risk to Ivan. He believes that the death threats he receives originate here. The caporali who live here know him as a tenacious opponent. For years, he has been going to camps like these to gather evidence of the gangmasters' illegal activities. He seeks out eyewitnesses, identifies perpetrators. He knows many of the residents and their stories, like this man from Sudan who fled to Italy around 20 years ago.
Hello. Hello.
His dream of a better life ended in this shack, where he sells used clothes. His customers are refugees from around the world. In front of the store, a man suddenly approaches. Ivan knows him as a caporale. For a while, he hides his anxiety, but then asks us to end the visit quickly.
We want an end to these ghettos. We want infrastructure, water, light, kitchens, decent sleeping arrangements. And my dream is to achieve that with the No Cop organization.
Ivan lives and works in Rome, not far from the Vatican. Here in his apartment, he founded NoCap. It's a system that certifies produce farmed under ethically acceptable conditions.
NoCap is based on Article 4 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says, "No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms."
L'esclavage est interdit sur toutes ses formes.
No Cop is an organization that says no to the caporalato system of gangmasters. It works with a system of labels. We'll put these labels on all the products from farmers who don't exploit their workers. We will monitor to ensure that the rights of the farm workers are respected. And we have formed a partnership with a union of small farmers called Ultragricoltura. They have around 60,000 farmers in their association. So we're starting out with a good little base.
In 2017, Ivan Sagnier was made a Knight of Italy's Order of Merit. He was awarded the honour by Italian President Sergio Mattarella for his commitment to human rights and his efforts to expose mafia-like structures in farming.
That was a grandiose moment in my life. A unique moment because I received this honor from a country that was not my own. I'm not Italian, I'm Cameroonian for the moment. And receiving this prize from a country that is not my own makes me very happy.
In 2017, Ivan also became a father. It was a good year, but it was overshadowed by death threats. His enemies knew that Ivan was determined to take them to court, to the highest court in the country if need be. The fear weighs heavily on his wife, Veronica.
These threats are unfortunately a sign of how well he's doing his work, how much he's disturbing the interests of the big players. And that's very disturbing to us as a family. Especially when he goes back to the places where these threats are coming from. We pray for him. We pray that he will reach his goal without harm. Ivan has shown that he's very brave and very obstinate. And he's demonstrated that change is possible, slowly, through hard work and the sacrifices he makes. I support him every day in this battle that he fights.
Back in 2007, Ivan came to Italy not to fight, but to study. He'd been fascinated by the country since his youth. It all went well until he failed an exam and lost his scholarship at his university in Turin. He needed cash, and his search for work took him to Nardo, in the south of the country, to harvest tomatoes. He arrived at this train station on July 10th, 2011. What he experienced then changed his life forever. Today, he's returned to the site on the edge of town where back then some 1,000 workers from Africa were living in tents, under plastic tarps or out in the open.
It was unbelievably filthy and hot here. And I asked the good Lord, where have I ended up here? I'd come from a completely different context in Turin. There, I lived in a decent house, a student dormitory, with a toilet, my own room, a bed. And suddenly I found myself here, sleeping on a mattress on the ground.
As he takes us across the property, Ivan discovers that farm workers are living here again. There are not many of them, but the conditions are hardly better than they were when he was here.
3 days after I arrived, I encountered a caporale who called himself Meiki. He was from Sudan. He was a big, strong guy called Meiki.
For the next 4 days, Ivan worked on the field brutally supervised by Meiki. He was paid €3.50 for a 350-kilo crate of tomatoes. On the first day, he managed to pick 4 crates. That made €14. He had to pay 10 of them to Meiki for transport, food and water. So after a 14-hour day in the heat and with beatings, he made €4.
That's how it was. And if you got sick, I remember one mate of mine, he fell down just like that. The sun was too strong. He just collapsed. Damn, that was hard. When he fell, I went over to him and asked him what was wrong. He said, I got some water and trickled it on him. And I told the caporale, he has to go to the hospital. But there wasn't one nearby. The hospital was far away. And the caporale said, leave him there. If he goes to the hospital, you'll have to pay €50 for the transport. That's not exploitation anymore. For me, that's slavery, a new slavery.
The man barely survived his collapse on the field.
I worked for 5 days. And on the 5th day, we said, enough. We are angry. Enough is enough. We want contracts. We want our rights to be respected. We are tired of being treated like slaves.
Ivan helped organise a strike, the first large-scale uprising among seasonal farm workers in Italy. The men from the ghetto joined it. Telerama, a local broadcaster, reported on it. Then the death threats came, and Ivan fled. But his anger brought him back again. After nearly 3 months, the harvest was starting to rot on the fields. The farmers gave in and offered higher pay and labour contracts. The government in Rome passed a law against the brutal caporalato system, and soon after, the first trial of farmers and gangmasters began with Ivan's involvement. His fight for human rights has now become a full-time occupation. It's a fight on many fronts, in production halls, on the fields, in court, and increasingly at negotiating tables. Here in Basilicata, he's meeting with some farmers he'd like to have as partners, as the direct employers of the farmhands. The meeting was arranged by Ivan's closest ally, trade union leader Gianni Fabris.
Italian fruit and vegetable production is hovering on the brink. Our products are subject to price dumping. The retailers say to the farmers, we'll pay you the same price for your peaches as we pay for peaches from Morocco or Turkey. They're much cheaper than yours. You want to sell? That's the price. That's the reality of farming in Italy.
The system is kept alive by the big companies in the food industry sector. They are pushing down the prices to rock bottom so that the farmers have no margin to maneuver. So they are forced to exploit their workers.
Ivan is working with farmers and trade unionists to find a better way.
We have to raise people's consciousness and beg the consumers to have more social responsibility. Consumers have to realize that behind the kilo of tomatoes that they buy is work. work in which people are being exploited, or work which is ethically correct. And if this rethink doesn't happen, we are dead.
A few days later, Ivan receives a message that gives him a boost. An Italian supermarket chain offers him his first deal. It will take an initial batch of no-cap products worth up to €1 million in its assortment. That will make it attractive for farmers to work with Ivan and his organisation. In the town of Grassano, Ivan shows how the no-cap system works. Here, a farmer picks up his workers himself, rather than leaving the transport to the criminal labour brokers.
This is what gives the caporali their power. That's how they bring their workers to the fields. There's no public transportation, so it's the caporali who take care of their transport and abuse them.
The gangmasters pack up to 30 people into a van that is authorised to hold a maximum of 8.
Traveling in those overfilled vans is terrible. Most of them don't have any windows because the caporali don't want the police to see that they're carrying 20 to 25 people. So inside, there's hardly any air. There are deaths every year.
Within the space of 2 days in August 2018, 2 separate crashes of overfilled vans claimed the lives of 15 African workers.
I want it to be different. These guys, these workers, came here in a normal vehicle. They didn't pay anything for the transport. As you can see, their clothing is white. It's work clothing. They also have protective masks and gloves to protect their hands. We're taking care of safety in the workplace. Before anyone starts working here, he gets a contract, and the pay is in accordance with legal requirements.
The last tomatoes of the season are being picked on this field. One of the workers, Thomas from Ghana, agrees to talk with us briefly.
We don't have contracts, contracts, so we can't work. Because in Europe or Italy, if you don't have work contract or work permit, you can't work. So we are always in camp. You think I'm a bad person, or I think I'm not a human being, but I'm a human being. Different skin, black and red, but blood is the same thing. So all we are one, different colors, one people.
The man on whose fields Thomas and the others are working also sees it that way. Giuseppe Vignola's family has been growing organic vegetables here for 30 years.
Hey guys, just pick the red tomatoes, just the really red ones.
Giuseppe Vignola's workers have contracts. He's one of a growing number of farmers who want to break out of a system of extreme price pressure that's turning them into perpetrators.
For me, the caporalato system is the worst mistake in existence, since you're using a labor force that's being fundamentally exploited. Harvesting tomatoes is very exhausting, and so this labor should be accorded a proper value. That's another reason why it's important to make contracts and protect the workers. For the tomato harvest, we pay €5 net per hour plus social contributions. That's twice as much as in the caporalato system. The entire system of the tomato harvest needs to change. The battle against these prices is extremely tough, and there are big difficulties.
An Italian trade union has calculated what a solution might look like. If the big retail chains paid the farmers just 2 cents more per kilogram of tomatoes, they would have 235 million euros more income. With that, they could set up humane housing and working conditions for the farm workers, and the problem with the caporali would vanish on its own. It's late October 2018 in Lecce in southern Italy. Ivan's lawsuit against gangmasters and exploitative farmers has been going on for 5 years. In this court, he celebrated a great triumph. The exploiters were convicted in the first trial, but now their appeal could end in a dramatic defeat.
Today we are in appeals proceedings. In the first trial, 9 caporali were sentenced to 11 years in jail. They were convicted of schiavitù in Italian, that is, of enslavement. 9 caporali and 3 Italian farmers were convicted. At the start, we were around 50 people who went to the police to press charges. We named the names of all those who'd exploited us. Today, there are just 8 of us with that courage. I am the main witness.
The other side, seated here in the dock, have been defending themselves with all available means. The farmers have shown up with an armada of expensive lawyers, but Ivan has been steadfast.
All those men are guilty of abusing workers. I was a victim of that, and I denounced it.
If the appeals court were to uphold the guilty verdict, it would be a remarkable success for Ivan, albeit a symbolic one.
It's clear that this trial has not changed the working conditions for the farmhands in the fields. The caporalato system is still in place everywhere in Italy. And the terrible living conditions of the people in the ghettos without water or light are still there. I knew that this trial would not change all that.
Nonetheless, Ivan Sagnier sees the trial as a milestone.
It's worth fighting. We're living in a world where you have to fight if you need a solution. If you don't fight, nothing will change. Things will only change if you fight. We are prepared.